This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
We move on from the NFL to the University of Miami. They have picked up Cameron Ward, the quarterback. He has chosen Miami and that NIL money over the NFL, which he's probably going to make more money with the NIL than he will in the NFL in his first year because he wasn't going to be a high pick, overall. So good move for him. And Jamey Vinnick works for Cougs. He's on the Cougars beat. He works for CougsFan.com. And you can follow him on Twitter at Jamey Vinnick 9. He's kind enough to join us. Jamey, we got no camera for you or what?
Yeah, my camera's busted right now. That happened this morning, so just trying to make it work on the fly.
Well, that's because you're up there with all that ice, bro, and so when the phones fall, it's not a good thing. All right, Jamey, so let's get to it, brother. They picked up what kind of a quarterback would you call Cam Ward? How good of a quarterback would you call the guy that Miami has for a year?
Yeah, so Cam, he's an interesting case in the fact that he's extremely talented, and then the key is getting him to unlock all that talent. He was good his 2 years at Washington State, but there was kind of a general feeling that he never quite reached the level of expectation when Washington State brought him in from Incarnate Word, and part of that was the offensive line was never great around him. He didn't have a great receiving core 2 years ago. It was good this past year. Then in turn, he didn't have a good running game this year. So I don't think he had a great supporting cast, but there was those moments where he had an opportunity to kind of show that, that he was ready for the NFL this year. And it always seemed to fall a little bit short. In his 2 years, he never had that kind of game-winning clutch drive to kind of, wow everyone. He never had the late game magic. So I think there's a lot of talent there, and I think you saw the talent on display. He would make some throws that are absolute clear-cut NFL throws, but then there were a lot of moments where it's like, okay, this guy still has a lot of work to do.
All right. And by the way, from looking at his stats, his completion percentage started at 60.4, then it went to 65.1, 64.4, and this year 66.6. So obviously the kid takes care of the football, 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He is smart with the football is what it looks like.
Yes and no. I would say in terms of interceptions, yes, he doesn't throw a lot of picks.
Okay.
His decision-making, not last year, but 2 years ago, was an issue. It was a giant issue. He did not throw as many picks this year, and of those 7, at least 2 or 3 bounced off the hands of someone.
Okay.
The issue is that he fumbles the ball a lot. He lost, I think, 7 fumbles this year, and in fairness, a couple of those were blindside pressures. Ball gets, knocked out from behind. There's nothing he can do. There were other instances where he's holding the ball too loose, and he either tries to switch hands and he drops it. I mean, there was a play, I think it was against Arizona. He scrambles out to the right. He goes to throw the ball, and it just falls out of his hand. And Washington State was able to recover, but the ball security from an interception standpoint is good. That's not a huge concern.
Is he a small hands guy? Is he a small hands guy?
No, he's got decently sized hands. It was just kind of, it was baffling. No one could understand why he kept losing the ball. That was a concern though, because I think he fumbled 11 times and lost 7 of them. So the ball security again on the interception piece, that's not a huge issue. He doesn't throw a ton of picks, and again, some of the ones that he did throw weren't necessarily on him. The fumbles were something that grew very frustrating for a lot of Washington State fans because there were some drive killers in there where he just can't hold on to the ball.
And Jamey, Hurricane fans should know they're not getting a runner, right? They're getting a pocket passer. This guy really doesn't choose to run much.
No, he doesn't choose. He can run. He has escapability, but
right.
He's not going to tuck the ball and pick up 40 yards on the ground. Jake Dickert said he can escape. He's not, they don't have a lot of design runs. When Wazoo would want to run with their quarterback, they would bring in their backup quarterback. He would do kind of the running, but he's not a statue in the pocket. As I came in, I heard you guys talking about Tua, and you were comparing him. He's not that, but he's not Lamar Jackson's. He's kind of in the middle ground of you need him to get out of the pocket. He can do so, and he has some pretty good magic with his escapability. He can
Okay.
extend plays, but no, he's not a guy who's going to go off right end and pick up 50 yards with his legs. He can get out of trouble, but it's escapability. It's not speed.
Right. Okay. So that's cool. It's good to know he has good instincts in the pocket and can buy himself some time. That's important. But that's what I'm saying. He's not really necessarily a running quarterback. This is a guy that's more of a pure pocket passer. But did Miami make a good move here? Because they desperately need a quarterback, and I'm thinking there was a competition. I'm thinking there's no competition anymore. Cam Ward is your starter. So you tell me, Jamey, what are you looking at?
I would think, yeah, if Miami's bringing him in, he's the guy. I don't think they would bring him in to compete for a job. I think they would say, hey, you're coming in, you're taking the job. And on the flip side, I don't think Cam would have taken the opportunity at Miami without a guarantee or without the knowledge that he's going to start. I think there's no doubt he's a talented quarterback, and there's no doubt that he can absolutely produce on the field. I think the ceiling for Miami with him at quarterback just depends on can he unlock the next level of his game that it always seemed was kind of missing at Washington State. That next level of I'm going to completely turn a game on its head. I'm going to go out and win a game, and then the consistency level. I mean, he had games where if he played, Oregon State's a great example. He was absolutely fantastic. He plays like that the whole year. He's going to the NFL draft. Then he had
Right.
games where it was a little brutal to watch. And again, there was some factors that didn't work in his favor. Washington State did not have a great offensive line this year, and they really did not have much of a running game. But I always say kind of the summary of Cam Ward's Washington State tenure was a game against Cal this year. The first 3.5 quarters, he fumbled 3 times, 2 went for touchdowns. He looked completely just kind of overwhelmed, and then suddenly they're down 42-24 with 6 minutes left, and he brings them back to have a chance to tie the game with a field goal that they subsequently missed. But that was Cam Ward in a nutshell, where it's not happening. And then suddenly you're reminded of, oh yeah, this is what this guy can do, and he almost brings them back from a huge deficit. So I think it's what version of Cam Ward do you get on any given day, and then if you can get the really talented NFL prospect one game in and game out, you have a chance to be really, really good.
I like that. All right. We had a kid here a couple of years ago, De'Aaron King, and it wasn't it hasn't been a great situation here at the U for like 20 years. But one of the things he brought to the table was a lot of leadership, and he kind of leveled things off for the team. How is Cam Ward's leadership? How does he handle the locker room, and how do players either gravitate to him or those kind of things? You tell me.
It's interesting because he's not the really vocal, outspoken, kind of leader where he's kind of got the swagger and he's games on the line. We never really saw this just because the opportunities weren't so much presented, but he's not the guy who everyone's around in the huddle and he's yelling at him like this right now. This is our moment. That
He's
kind
not
of thing.
Baker Mayfield. He's not Baker Mayfield.
Right, exactly. He's not. At Washington State, we always compare quarterbacks to Gardner Minshew, just because he was kind of the top of the tier for leadership and for swagger, and he's not that. Now, I'm not in the locker room, so I can't speak to exactly what his leadership role is like. But it's not the prototypical quarterback where again he's really loud and really vocal. And the vocal leaders on this Washington State offense last year was one of the wide receivers who's graduated, and then one of the offensive linemen. So it's kind of an interesting case where, again, we didn't really see him. There was no 2-minute drill where let's see what happens. There wasn't a lot of those opportunities, but when there was, they didn't score. I mean, they had chances in games these last couple of years where, more so this year, I should say, where 2 minutes left, you need a touchdown drive. It didn't happen. So it's hard to say exactly what he would do in those moments because there isn't a huge sample size, but he's not the I remember watching De'Aaron King both at Miami and at Houston, I wouldn't say he's in that level of kind of rally around leadership. Guys gravitate to him. He's well liked he was well liked. Very popular guy on the team. Good kid, nice kid, all those things. He's just not as kind of intense and like fiery and not. I don't want to say he's not passionate because he is passionate about the game, but his leadership style. It's different than what you would say as like you said, a Baker Mayfield or a Gardner Minshew.
Okay, I got you. And Gardner still has that swag, bro.
Yep.
He still has. I think that's what makes him survive in this league, because we know he's not the most gifted quarterback in the NFL, but I think his toughness, his leadership, his swag, his confidence in his ability, even though he's not an elite quarterback, but he'll think of himself differently. And I think, and people definitely gravitate to Minshew. It's a great example of a guy that, man, I think those intangibles is what's made Minshew what he is, dude. He's
Absolutely.
right?
And we saw that at Washington State. Washington State's had more talented quarterbacks over the years, but I mean, 4 or 5 game-winning drives where he had the belief, and it got to the end of the season. I remember they played Cal late in the year. It was just this freezing cold, ugly, ugly football game with Minshew at quarterback. 13-13 with like a minute and a half left, and Wazoo got the ball, and everyone in the stadium believed, oh, they're going to win this. Minshew's going to take him down the field. And that doesn't usually happen at Washington State. But and then lo and behold, he does exactly that. And they go and they win just this ugly, ugly game. But they go ahead and they win it. And he gave him that belief early. He had an 89-yard touchdown against Utah. He threw a critical touchdown against Oregon, led him again. I mean, every moment that he needed to step up and lead a game-winning drive, he did at Washington State, and it kind of lent to that belief. And as you said, no, he's not the most talented guy in the world, but he's made a career for himself because he believes he's the most talented guy in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to have him as my backup QB on any NFL team. I think you would have one of the better backups, overall. And he's a guy that could actually start and keep you at least somewhat, afloat. Jamey Vinnick joining us, CougFan.com. He covers Cam Ward and covers Washington State. One more thing before I let you go. I might be wrong assuming this. I kind of led into the interview with it. I would imagine that Cam Ward did not get the NFL grade he was looking for and said, this NIL money is better. It buys me another year and I can build up my stock. It was more about maybe what he didn't get from the NFL, why he's back in the NCAA and with Miami, correct?
That would be my assumption. I don't have any concrete information on that, but I think when you see him, he declares for the draft, and then I mean, we were at a Wazoo's basketball game on Saturday against Arizona, and suddenly the tweet pops up, and I'm sitting with one of the other beat writers. We're like, well, what the heck? Like, no one expected that. No one had heard anything about that. So yeah, I think that's probably a pretty safe to believe that he did not get the grade he wanted, and said, it might be in my best interest to come back. And in the world we live in, he probably is getting more from Miami than he would have gotten as a 6th or 7th round pick.
Oh, dude, he's making $1 million easy.
Yep.
Easy.
Yep.
Million. And if he comes in and shows anything, there'll be a couple more that'll climb on board for the rest of the season. He'll make a couple of extra $100,000, overall. So yeah, he did what's best for himself and his family. And we can never, ever, ever deny that for anybody in any walk of life. So,
absolutely.
Hey, you got to do what's best for you and your family. Hey, Jamey, thank you for taking some time and talking a little Cam Ward with us, man. I appreciate it. I'm old enough to remember, what is it? Was it Tim Rosenbaum or whatever with Dennis Erickson, right? Was it back then or something like that?
No, that predates me even. That's a few years before I was around.
Bledsoe, I still remember. Not Bledsoe. Ryan Leaf, that snow game that Ryan Leaf played there. I still remember that game.
Yeah, Leaf was the quarterback about a year after I was born. Bledsoe was before me too. I remember Bledsoe in the NFL, but that was the Bledsoe and Rosenbaum days. Those were a few years before me.
7. I remember all of them, bro. I'm sorry. All of them. Anyway, Jamey, thank you, man. I appreciate it big time. Have a great
anytime.
You got it. Thank you, sir. Jamey Vinnick, Cougs beat writer for the CougFan.com. Figured if we get Cam Ward, let's find out from somebody that covers Cam Ward on an everyday basis for you UM fans out there.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.